Hey, Peter.
Hey, Mark.
We're back.
We're doing it again.
Yeah,
With fancy mics this time.
I know. Shout out to Jonas Maldonado for listening to our last podcast
What
and
a guy.
thinking, that sounds terrible. I can make this better. and hooking us up.
That was his initial reaction. That's rough. Let me help these guys out.
We really appreciate you, Jonas. Thank you so much, man.
You know,
Awesome.
that's a strategy that most people will use when they need help. Is just do something terribly intentionally.
Is that what you do at home?
That's like, I can't do the dishes right.
Oh, man.
I suck at giving Henry a bath. How do the faucets work? All of a
I'm not
sudden,
supposed
the
to put a
knobs.
bar of soap in the washing machine? What?
And then I just, I get removed from those responsibilities because I'm trash.
How convenient.
On the flip side, growing up, my mom would be, she would always tell us how good we were at the chores she would like us to do. So, Pete, you're so good at making lunches for everybody. Or you're so good at doing the dishes. You're so good at it.
So then you just want to do it.
Yeah, well, not really, but that was her intention.
That was
Not
her
sure
goal.
how well it worked, but that was what she was trying to
I'm
do.
going to start doing that with Titus.
Try
Titus,
it.
you're so good
Dude,
at paying the bills.
You are phenomenal at getting a part-time job at the age of 8.
That's right.
How old is Titus?
Titus is 4.
Oh, 4. Wow. I was way off. I have no bearing at all on how tall children are at their ages.
That's so funny. 4-year-old Titus. Barely formulating sentences.
We were at Costco yesterday, and Henry was pushing a pallet jack.
How old is Henry? Like 13?
He's old enough. No, he's turning 2 in May, so he's like, what is that, 20-something months?
Yeah.
I lose track of the months.
Yeah.
I kept counting until 20 months.
Until 20 months. That's farther than I did.
20 months, because 18 is easy, because it's a year and a half.
Oh.
And then once we hit 20 months, I'm like, all right, he's going to be a year or 2 years in May.
I did
That's
it
it.
to a year, and then he
Yeah.
was just a year old until 2.
Yeah,
That was too much math for me.
I'm not a big fan of the parents who are like, he's 42 months old. I'm like,
months old.
all right, I think we can stop with that now.
That's so funny.
That's a bit much.
When 673 months old.
He just stopped breastfeeding last week. We're so proud of him. He is in 3rd grade, by the way.
Oh, boy. Oh, man.
3, 2, 1.
So, how are we going on?
What? I don't know. No, this is
So, what's on your mind today?
I was thinking about a few things. I don't know how theological you want to get versus just real life, but I thought it might be fun to, since it's still kind of our first real podcast episode, to do some backgrounds on each other. Cool. Such as, like, how did you decide to become a pastor?
Oh, man.
Because that's not your normal run-of-the-mill job,
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So
Let's backtrack.
let's backtrack a little bit. I guess that would be good.
Yeah.
I was born in La Ciudad de Mexico.
Can you say that one more time,
I
please?
was born in Mexico City at the bright age of newborn. And I was born, interesting tidbit, I don't know if you know this, I was born with 12 fingers.
No way.
Did you know that?
No, are you serious?
I was born, I haven't told you that yet?
No!
Oh, man, I was
That's so
born with
cool.
12 fingers. I have scars still from where they cut them off. Look at that little bump right there. You see?
What?
Yeah, I was born with 12 fingers. That has nothing to do with my
Holy
background.
cow.
It doesn't
I love
influence
it.
me whatsoever.
Okay.
Other than when I play like 2 truths and a lie, I always win.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
But I was born in Mexico because my parents were missionaries in Mexico.
Okay.
And so my older brother was young when they moved there. He's 4 years older. And then I have a younger sister that was born 4 years after me.
Okay.
And when she was born with a very severe case of cerebral palsy. And so she has the mental capability of about a 2-month-old. And the health situation in Mexico, she could just get more attention in the United States. So as much as my parents didn't want to, they felt it was best to move back to the United States.
Yeah.
And so we moved back to the United States when I was 7. Yeah, 7, just about to turn 8.
Okay.
And we moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Nice.
And I went to a small Christian elementary there. And a little bit about like my spiritual upbringing is we we grew up in a very conservative home, very legalistic at times. We grew up independent fundamental Baptist, and so.
Can you elaborate on what legalistic means?
Sure. So just kind of gave off the perception that your salvation and God would love you if you did certain things, and not even just like if you did what the Bible says, but if you did what the Bible says plus these other rules that we think are important.
Okay.
So, for example, like women weren't supposed to wear pants, men couldn't have facial hair.
Men couldn't have facial hair?
Have facial hair, yeah.
Wow.
They would have had a problem with Jesus.
I was going to say, that makes no sense to me, but okay. Where did they even come up with that?
I don't really know. I don't really know that one, but
that kind of
it
church,
was,
the
yeah,
Baptists?
because I mean, in the time, like beards and facial hair were associated with kind of like a hippie culture type thing.
Okay.
And so you needed to be proper and put together in order to come to church.
Gotcha.
And we weren't able to go to like movie theaters or things like that. So that was kind of the upbringing. One time, so my family gradually came out of this, but I was playing with playing cards, which was a huge no-no. And we were in the hospital one time with my sister, and I was playing solitaire. The devil's game.
The devil's game.
With a deck of cards.
Satan tear, as we like to call it.
And my grandparents came up, and they were still more conservative. And so quickly I put my cards away, and I slipped them in what I thought was my mom's purse.
Uh-oh.
But it turned out to actually be my grandma's purse.
Oh, no.
And so she got home, and she pulled out this deck of cards from her purse, and it was quite the affair.
Uh-oh.
But so we lived in Tennessee for a while. Then we moved to Ohio, back to my parents' home church, where my dad was a pastor, and I spent some time growing up and developing. And eventually, my brother went off to college, and the rest of us went down to South Florida.
I just like how you said, I spent some time growing up and developing. As if that's not what literally every single human does. You know, while I was a child, I spent some time growing older and learning things.
And developing.
It's such like an adult way to say
My body
it.
grew larger.
I love it.
And then we moved to Florida and spent some time at a Christian high school there. And I was able just to learn from my dad, who was a pastor, and then kind of I followed in my brother's footsteps, went off to Moody Bible Institute, studied there, continued studying back in South Florida, where I got my Master's of Divinity degree, and really got to like learn from my dad in ministry. And I worked at his church for a while as the worship pastor, and then really felt led to kind of take a church over for myself. And I always had this big goal of planting this church in Las Vegas or San Francisco. I don't know why. I'd only been to Las Vegas once and only heard of San Francisco, but the elders and the leaders of the church, when they ordained me, they encouraged me. They said that I really they encouraged me to focus more on church revitalization, because I don't really have strong administrative skills.
Sure.
So starting a church wouldn't probably go well for me. But church revitalization is this idea of coming alongside a church that is in a season of struggling and loving them and walking with them through struggle, maybe back to a healthier place. And so that's what we did. My wife and I looked for opportunities to do that, and Cedar Creek Community Church opened up. And
what's your church's? So I have a Wells background, and that's Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod, and that's how I was raised, and I kind of have a decent grasp on how that church works. Yeah. So like, how are you in wherever you were you where were you going to school?
Moody Bible Institute.
Okay. Well, where were you living when you got called to Cedar Creek Community Church?
South Florida.
Okay, so you're in Florida.
I was Florida.
So how does that work where you're like, oh, we're going to move to Wisconsin? How does that process work for finding where you want to go next?
Yeah, it's not quite like a Wells situation, but so my dad's church is a Southern Baptist church. I was going to school at Knox Theological Seminary, which was a Presbyterian seminary. And then Cedar Creek Community Church is a Converge church, which is it has its roots in like Swedish Baptist. Okay. And so Converge recognized the ordination of the Southern Baptist denomination, and so instead of like a presbytery or someone calling me to the church, instead I got on the internet at churchstaffing.com.
That is so great.
And I searched senior pastor positions,
Yep.
and Cedar Creek Community Church comes up, and read about their church and got to know them, and then got to know the search committee, and then they brought me in, and the rest is history. And so that's kind of how we got here about 5 years ago, and now we're turning into Wisconsinites through and through. So we'll see how it is.
Yeah, because you've been here how long now?
Been here 5.5 years.
Wow. It's a long time.
It is. It's other than Mexico, it's the longest I've been in one place.
How long or how often do you guys go to Florida, if at all?
We go to Florida once a year.
Okay.
Usually.
Okay.
Once a year. And we go back to Ohio, which is where my wife's family is, about twice a year, maybe 2-3 times a year.
Yeah, it's a little closer.
Yeah.
A little
bit.
easier.
We can drive there.
I'm assuming do you guys fly when you go to Florida once a year? Yeah.
Yeah.
But you drive to Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what makes the Florida trip a little bit harder, especially now that like kids are in school.
Yeah.
It's because you can only go like during school breaks,
Yeah.
and plane tickets are about $5 million.
Yeah.
When you go
Roughly
during a
$5
school
million.
break.
Titus is still a lap child.
Not yet. I mean, not anymore.
I'm joking.
Oh. Oh,
yes, he's
convincing
2 and
them.
under. Shrink, just squishing him down a little bit.
He's anywhere from 2 to 8. Who
Hunch,
knows?
Titus, hunch. You're 2.
That's right. Just say goo goo gaga, and we will fool them. But yeah, so we get down there every once in a while. But Wisconsin is home, and we love it here, and it's been awesome. How'd you end up here?
So I grew up not far away from here, but we grew up right where Grafton meets West Bend meets Jackson, like right in the middle of a bunch of cornfields. And then,
Sounds like Wisconsin.
yeah, my dad bought the land, and then we built a house there. And that's the house I grew up in with me and my 6 siblings and 2 dogs. It was a madhouse, but so much fun. And we lived there until I graduated high school. When I was in college, my parents moved to Cedarburg. We technically had a West Bend address at the house we grew up in. But anyways, then we were in Cedarburg. While I was in college, they lived in a ranch because they could downsize because most of us moved out, got married, all that stuff. And then it was just my couple brothers at home. My younger brother did the Navy for a while, so he was gone for a while. So it was just my youngest brother. And then they ended up, around the time my dad was planning to retire, they were able to buy a house in Grafton here.
Awesome.
So where they live now is probably a 10-ish minute drive from where we grew up.
Yeah.
So it's not far. But the thing is, like, West Bend, which is a little bit bigger than Grafton, is where we would always go to, like, go shopping and stuff.
Yeah.
So even though Grafton was basically the same distance away, I almost never came over here.
Wow.
So even though it's like 10, 12 minutes
Yeah,
from
it's
here,
like right down the road from me.
I didn't know anything about Grafton until we moved here. So my wife and I moved here like 2.5 years ago. The winter, we got married in August. And then moved in. I was like, I'm pretty sure.
Brave of you to say dates. I conveniently skipped over any dates in my life.
I'm pretty sure we got married in August of 2020, and then we moved in December. We were able to buy a house, so that worked out.
Did you know that Grafton used to be called Hamburg?
No,
Yeah.
Hamburg.
Like
awful.
Cedarburg and Oostburg and Hamburg.
Hamburg.
And then someone probably
It tells
thought,
you a little bit about the origins of this area. It's very German.
yeah,
Das Berg. Everything is Berg.
Berg. I like hamburgers.
I don't like hamburgers.
So like people from Grafton would have been called hamburgers, I guess.
Wow, they would have. We would have all been
Would
hamburgers.
have been hamburgers.
Wow.
Man, stuff that'll change your life right there.
Wow. When did it change? Do you have any idea?
I have
the
no idea.
history of that?
No.
How did you know it used to be called Hamburg? Where'd you hear that?
Wikipedia? Reliable source
Did you find that out when you were looking into this church?
Yep.
Okay. All
Yep.
right. I was like,
I
why
wanted to
would you
find out
go
more about
digging
Grafton.
about? Okay. I gotcha.
And this is just one of those interesting things that I found out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So at what point did you grow and develop?
I grew and developed for years and years. Yeah, no, I did a lot of stuff. After high school, I went to tech school for a little bit to save money, so I didn't have to pay for essentially a normal person's education. And then I went to Platteville for 3 semesters, UW Platteville, because I thought I might want to be an engineer. I always liked fixing things and like building things and like solving problems. I was like, engineer sounds good. I did 3 semesters at Platteville, and I realized I didn't want to be stuck at a desk forever. So I made a career switch or a college switch. It was funny because I always remember the breaking point. Like sometimes in life, you're like, for a switch, you hit this point. And I was doing Calc 2 homework in the library, and I just got stuck, and I could not figure out this problem. And I like got so frustrated. I went for a walk, ended up calling my brother-in-law, and we talked on the phone, and he was like, well, what do you like doing? And at that time, I was working out a lot with my wingmates in my dorm. And I was like, that's the best part of my day, like hanging out with them and working out and exercising. And he was like, well, maybe you should do something along those lines. I was like, oh, I never really thought about that. At that time, my brother was a recruiter in the Navy, my older brother, Ben. And I never was interested in the Navy because I get claustrophobic thinking about someone dictating what I'm supposed to do 24/7.
Without a doubt.
And he was like, just do the reserves because it's a glorified scholarship, basically. And you miss 1 semester of school and you can come back. And I was like, oh, okay. So I left Platteville, joined the Navy Reserves, did boot camp, went to San Antonio for the schooling after boot camp. And then I missed just the fall semester. And I went back in spring and applied to lacrosse. I went to UW Lacrosse for fitness education or fitness and nutrition. Got my degree there, worked out and worked at a group fitness gym, which is called Eupraxia. And they had a few locations, and now I am one of those locations because I opened it here in Grafton. So that all worked out. And then after I graduated college, I came back, worked in sales for a little bit, and then I was that guy selling Spectrum at the Walmart.
Oh, man.
Do you have AT&T or Spectrum? I remember we would go down to like more of like Hispanic areas. It's like, ¿Cómo estás? ¿Quién tienes para la internet en la casa? AT&T or Spectrum? And I would have a buddy with me who like could speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And if they were like, oh, you know, like, then they started talking to me. I was like, hey, dude, come close this sale for me. Come here.
That's all I know. That's all I know.
¿Cuánto tienes?
Yo quiero Taco Bell. Yo quiero Taco Bell.
No, yo quiero Taco Bell. So I did that. And then I was like, well, I was about to be done with the reserves, and I kind of wanted a deployment experience. Plus, you make pretty good money because you have no living expenses because they house you and feed you and everything.
Yeah.
So I was like, that might be something to do. So I basically put my name into a pool to get picked for deployment, and I got picked. And they said, they actually gave me an option, which is weird. Normally you don't get options, but they said, do you want to go to Djibouti in Africa, or do you want to go to Guantanamo Bay in Cuba? And I heard both of those weren't like ideal, like awesome, sweet spots. But I had heard some good things about Guantanamo Bay in Cuba as far as like, you know, things that you can actually do on base and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Both were obviously warm climates. So that wasn't really too big of a difference. But I decided on Cuba, which is good because I met my wife there. So that's where I met Shireen. She was in the reserves in New Jersey, and
So she's not Cuban.
No, she's not Cuban. No, she's Jamaican, in fact. So she got deployed the same time as I did, and yeah, we became friends and then fell in love and stuff. So that's cool. Yeah.
Navy nuptials.
Navy nuptials. Yep. That's how she goes. Thankfully, we were both in the reserves, so when we got back, we could like, you know, live our lives like normal civilians, because military marriages are tough because you get deployed all the time and you're gone all the time. So it was one of those military marriages that actually worked out really well.
Was it hard for you? I know you kind of navigated a little bit, but was it hard for you to kind of figure out that you wanted to do this fitness thing?
Not really. So when I left engineering, it was because I wanted to work with people. So I was like, okay, I want to work with people. I really kind of am interested in like anatomy and physiology and stuff like that. And then when I got my degree in fitness and I was doing that stuff in school, I ended up working at the gym, and like that just worked out really well.
Yeah.
And I kind of follow God's signs for like, hey, this is kind of a good idea for you to do. So the guy, I had to get random roommates because I didn't know many people in lacrosse. So I went on Craigslist to find my roommates. And one of my roommates was a trainer at Eupraxia. And he was like, hey, you should come check out the gym that I work at.
Yeah.
I went there and ended up working there. And then when I was in the Navy, when we were in Cuba, so this is when I had some experience working at the gym, leading group fitness classes. When we were in Cuba, I started, like, Shereen was like, hey, can I work out with you? And I was like, sure. So we kind of did our own little 2-person workout. And then a couple other people that we knew found out that we were doing that and joined us. And then I ended up having like a 7 to 10 person group fitness class I wasn't advertising. It
That's
just
wild.
built to that with people that we knew. So our days started early. I think we did this workout at like 4:30 in the morning.
My word.
So the fact we had like 7 to 10 people showing up at like 4:30 a.m. to like do this group fitness class that I kind of come up with every day. I was like, okay, this was super organic, not forced at all.
Yeah.
And just felt like something I should
Did it
be
give you
doing.
like confidence in the like what you were doing people valued?
Yeah, I think so. And then it also just kept that momentum going of like my knowledge and keeping me sharp and like, so yeah, now I've got, I don't know, probably tens of thousands of hours of fitness experience and time put into that. So it's what I do now. And it's great.
It's stressful figuring out like what you're going to do for a living.
I think so. I agree 100%.
And I know I experienced it a little bit growing up, and I don't know if it's correcting itself or not, but there's just like a lot of pressure on kids really young to figure out what you want to be when you get older.
Yeah, and I talked to even like my younger brother, and I try and encourage him to just keep like trying things.
Without a doubt.
Because you have, especially when you're like in your 20s, you have so much time to do multiple jobs. The issue, in my opinion, is
You gonna drop a hot take right now?
oh yeah,
Hot take.
a hot take Pete alert. I don't know. My opinion is we are stuck in our parents' mindsets, right? Which is when they were 20, 25, 30, you'd get a job at one, place, and then you would work there for 40, 45 years, retire, and you get a pension, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right. And you had to go to college first.
Yeah.
So you have to go to college, you have to get a degree, and you work for the same company, and they give you a gold watch and a pension at the end, right? That doesn't happen anymore. So many people are making a ton of money not even going to college.
Yeah.
The trades are hurting like crazy.
Because everybody feels pressured to go to college.
You need to be there's no plumbers and construction workers and stuff like that. Well, there are obviously, but they need more.
Yeah.
And this just doesn't make sense to, when I was in high school, the question wasn't, what would you like to do? What are you interested in? And does college make sense to fulfill that? It was, where are you going to college? And that's still the mindset for a lot of people. I think it's slowly breaking. And I'm not anti-college. I went to college. I'm glad I did. But my biggest takeaway from college was probably personal interactions.
Yeah.
Like talking to people, dealing with people, making friends and memories and stuff like that. My biggest takeaway from college was not, I remember the tests I took or any information.
Yeah.
It was interpersonal relationships, which is a big skill you can take for the rest of your life, but you don't necessarily need college.
It's a lot of money to spend on that.
It's a lot, tens of thousands of dollars so that I can talk to people better, or have some good memories.
But I mean, you're absolutely right that it's almost, at least for us, I think it is changing too.
Yeah.
But it was almost assumed that you're going to college, and if you're not, you seemed like a failure.
You're a failure. People are
Yeah.
disappointed in you.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, there's a ton of pressure.
And that's what I try to communicate to, like, the youth in our church and things, is that, like, yeah, what are you passionate about?
Yeah.
What?
Maybe college is the best option.
Yeah, it very well could be.
Yeah.
But don't have so many people go to college trying to figure it out. And there's other options out there.
Yeah.
There's other options.
Well, and the internet too now is nuts. Like how much money you can make just doing things online, having different like YouTube channels and
yeah.
selling things online and streaming, playing video games.
There's so many, and like there's more and more options for income that are coming about that
Yeah.
that I think previous generations don't even realize.
Yeah.
And so there's so many other options out there.
Yeah. I think there's some friction too with old school mindsets of kids need to be working at a brick and mortar shop,
Yeah.
like stocking shelves and stuff. That's what I did. I stocked shelves at Piggly Wiggly. But like if you're a kid, let's say you're 14, 15, 16, and you have some sort of like funny personality and you love playing Fortnite, you can make a lot of money on like Twitch and these streaming services playing Fortnite in your basement at your parents' house, making jokes and like, recording it, and people will pay you money to watch you play video games. If you're 15 and people are like, "Oh no, you got to go, lay brick and learn how to, how to do these things and like get a work ethic." I'd be like, "Sorry, I'm making more sitting in my parents' basement
Playing video games.
And that's why I think obviously not everybody's doing that, like kids these days, but the opportunities are there.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of why there's not as many kids working in like the traditional,
because they see
stores.
all of these different avenues
Yeah.
of finding a career, making a living, living life.
And hopefully that is encouraging for them to go after something they're interested in and passionate about, and not just this is easier.
Yeah.
So I'll do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of them are equally valid and equally true. I wrestle a lot with how I became a pastor a little bit, because my dad's a pastor.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, a lot of it was the easy thing to do. Everybody assumed I was going to be a pastor. I mean, from a young age, everybody was talking about me being like my dad, and when you're a pastor, all this stuff. And so there was a little bit of this assumption that's the direction I would go. And I don't really necessarily remember a time sitting down and deciding, this is what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a pastor. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love what I do. I love where I'm at. But I don't know if I ever gave myself that opportunity to even think through other options. I'm assuming it's just God directing me and guiding me where I'm at. But I think those are good conversations to have too, and to sit down and really think through and process.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and especially when you get to sticky points in life, to have that confidence that you are where you should be, to keep pushing through when you're like, man, this is not ideal.
Yeah.
Like this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. Am I supposed to be here? Like, did I make the right decision? To have that in the back of your head of like, I've thought this through. This is where I should be.
Yeah.
And this is just a hard point in life,
Yeah.
versus if you're on no basis other than this is just what I have been doing, so I might as well keep doing it.
Yeah.
And then when that existential crisis comes up, that midlife crisis of like everything's starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what am I doing? Why am I here?
Yeah.
But it's all good.
How do you handle those times?
The tough times?
Yeah.
I don't know, just bury your head in the sand, wait for it to pass.
That's right. Just hope that it all goes away.
I think that's actually a good discussion to have, especially for like men, is
Oh my word, yeah.
how do you deal with struggles? Because you're supposed to be the leader for your family, and for you, for your congregation, and for me, for the gym. And when things aren't good, like what do you do? Yeah, it's tough. I think having good habits is a good part of it. So if you can continue, trying to exercise and eat decent, and having good social interactions with people you care about, people you can kind of confide in and talk to through the tough times. Most times it's temporary. It's just a matter of being able to get through that time.
Yeah.
Because there's always good on the other side of bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think having people that love you, that you can talk to, confide in is huge. Especially if you're married, being able to go through it with your spouse, so that they can help you and encourage you and all that stuff.
Yeah. And like you said, even if you don't have a spouse, having a group of people or a community or
good friend, family. Yeah. Church family. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How about you? How do you get through the tough times?
I'm a work in progress.
Yeah. Plug the title of the podcast.
Because for the longest time, and again, this will be conversations for other times we chat, but for most of my life, it was just, let me shove this down, let me get through this, let me pretend like this isn't happening so that I can get through it and see clearly.
Yeah.
And now I'm really like wrestling with and working through what it means to suffer well, and what it means to kind of sit in the darkness and kind of just ponder and like, how is this going to make me grow? And how is this going to improve me and develop me, rather than just let me get past this as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And I think there's health in being okay with not being okay for a moment.
Yeah.
But that's hard.
Well, it's not even like the culture today is like never suffer, never struggle. Like, you should always be feeling good.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're not, like, go on your phone and escape it, or eat comforting foods, or
something to make get you back
drugs.
Up for a little bit. Yeah.
Here's some fun stuff you can try. You'll never feel bad
this
again.
This will make you happy.
Yeah, exactly. It's very much a eat, drink, and be merry kind of culture that we live in, it seems like. So,
I mean, anytime you ask somebody how you're doing, if anybody says anything other than good, it like throws you off. It's like, oh, okay, have a good day.
I hope it gets better for you.
Yeah. Because there is just this assumption that everybody's supposed to be doing good.
Yeah.
And
which isn't the case.
There's a lot of times that I'm not doing good.
And you grow through suffering, right? So it's like what you said was suffering well. I think that's really kind of a cool concept to think about and focus on for my life too, is like, when you are suffering, like, it's okay. Yeah. And it's a time to grow. It's the same thing with fitness, right? Yeah. When you first make a food change and you start eating better, you suffer because you feel lethargic and you're like, man, I have no energy and this sucks. I don't want to eat any more vegetables and give me my junk food back, right? There's some suffering there, but you grow through it and you give it a week or two and you feel much better. Yeah. Same thing with a workout. Your muscles hurt, ache, sore a little bit. During the workout, it hurts. You can't breathe as good. All that stuff. You suffer a little bit. But that's how you grow and improve. Yeah. And God's given us little exercises in life, right? Yeah. To that we suffer through, but that we get stronger and grow through.
And that's why it's so important, like you said earlier, to practice and to grow in those disciplines of getting ourselves ready to handle challenges, so that we know, so that we can know how to handle them when the time comes.
And then also looking at each struggle as a blessing. Ooh. Because if you look at a struggle and you're like, this sucks, this is unfair, God doesn't love me, all those things, not only is that not necessarily true, but it's going to make the suffering tenfold worse. Yeah. Right? So it's your mindset going into everything is mindset for the most part. So if you're struggling, to be like, thank you, Lord, because you want me to grow through this. Yeah. That just shifts your whole perspective on it. And you're like, wait a second, this really sucks. This is tough, but God's given me the opportunity to grow, get smarter, get stronger. Thanks, God. Appreciate you. Good looking out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this past Sunday, I preached on Jesus calming the storm.
Right. Yeah.
And just mentioned briefly how how Jesus led his disciples into the storm, that it was his idea to go out into the water, and then the storm hits, and then he doesn't just like immediately calm the storm or anything. The disciples are up there freaking out for a while,
Right.
and they like have buckets and they're trying to throw water overboard,
Yeah.
and they're like terrified, and they come down like, "Are you just cool with us drowning?" He's like, "Calm down, be still, silence," and he
Yeah.
calms the storm. But it wasn't just like this storm avoidance. Jesus was with them in the storm,
Yeah.
and he eventually silenced the storm,
Yeah.
but not nearly as quickly as they would have hoped, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think that applies often to our lives too, that there are many times that we are led into storms for our betterment, for our faith development, for our self-understanding.
Yeah.
And when the time, we may be delivered from the storm. But while we're in the storm, let's grow. That's hard to do.
It's tough. I was just visualizing, like, in that story of Jesus in the storm, like one of the disciples, their faith is just immaculate, and they're just chilling.
Chilling.
It's like,
What's
"Guys,
wrong, dude?
why
Come
are
on,
you
calm
dumping
down."
the water off the boat. Put the buckets down.
Don't you know that Jesus is down
Jesus
there?
is just chilling on the boat, and they're all just mad at him. Like, what are you, like, help us. We're going to go.
We're good.
And the other thing I think about is, like, in the context of that story, it always seemed to me like Jesus was a little upset. He's like, "Why'd you wake me up?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be fine." But what's the flip side? They don't wake him up. Like, what happens then? Like, how does this story end if they don't wake up Jesus? And they're like, "Guys, we definitely shouldn't wait. Let's trust him.
Let's trust-
It's going to be fine." But if he doesn't
Everybody
wake up,
just hold on.
they're all treading water. It's going to be fine. Yeah.
That's right.
Because Jesus had to wake up. So I don't know.
And maybe that does speak to the importance of prayer and the importance
Oh,
of
dude,
in the
nice.
midst of
Yeah.
the struggle and the storm.
Dude, I don't pray nearly enough.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're right, you don't. Just kidding.
You got me.
I don't.
Oh, no.
I don't either. None of us do, I don't think.
Well, I'm just thinking like how easy it is. Like it's just focusing on God and having a discussion with him.
Yeah.
And it's so simple, and you can bring everything to God in prayer. Everything.
Yeah.
He wants you to have a relationship with him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's ego or just distraction. Like I think we talked about a different time was Satan distracting us with all like our phones and social media and YouTube and TV and like everything basically. That we don't have time to just be and exist and focus on a relationship with God.
Yeah.
When it's like, when you're struggling, pray.
Yeah.
When things are good, pray and rejoice.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're not thinking about anything, just check in, be like, "Hey God, what's up?
Yeah.
Appreciate all the things that you've given me. Gratitude for the struggles, gratitude for the good things." Dude, like we pray before meals and we pray before bed.
Yeah.
And I could not tell you the last time I just like stopped and was like, let me just say a prayer. And that should be like every day.
And like you said, it's not even like, let me sit down and think through everything I
Right.
got to say, but it's this heart of prayer. It's just this being with God.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe that's a part of it too, is you're like, what if I don't do the prayer right?
Yeah.
Or like, what if God's busy?
That's right.
It's like, he's got a lot going
Like on the phone, just letting it ring.
Yeah.
Leave a voicemail, I
It's
guess.
like, why doesn't this guy text me? He's trying to call. He knows I'm not going to pick up.
calls?
Who calls anymore? This guy's FaceTiming me? How dare he? I'm busy. Shooting you a text, bud. Facebook Messenger. Yeah. No, but it's just an easy thing that I think would be helpful.
So this is totally going to show like the millennial immature side of me. But there's like a lot of times that I'll like text a prayer and like I'll type it up in my notes or something like that, just because that's how I think and process a lot of times.
Okay.
And so I'll type it up. One of these times he's going to respond now. I'm like, hey, you got
Wait.
my number.
So you're texting a prayer to God on your phone? Like for real?
I don't actually send a text.
No, but like where do you
But I usually type it either like in like a messages to my wife or something, and then I'll cut it and post it in the notes or something like that.
I was wondering where you
But
actually
like, how
typing
crazy
it.
would it be if like a number was developed that people could text and just like scriptures responded?
Wow.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
That's like an app idea, dude.
Yeah, just
There's
like people like text their prayers
Yeah.
and then like scriptures responded.
Wow. That's actually a good idea.
Not a bad idea.
People could really use that, I think.
I've thought about it before.
Yeah.
You have to have like someone who like really knows the scriptures that can like send an applicable.
Well, it's probably a data, like a word recognition thing.
Yeah.
So if they're saying struggling with whatever,
Yeah.
like the app would like register those words and like.
Oh, that's true.
Then there's a database.
You
of-
wouldn't be like a random verse. 'Cause they're like,
No.
I'm really struggling today. And then they slaughtered 10,000 goats.
Oh my god! Can we talk about one of my favorite
Oh, no.
verses to talk about is when Jesus commands the demons to go into the pigs. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Like what the owners of the pigs were thinking.
Like the farmers, I can just picture them.
What
like,
the heck, man?
They're like just a quarter mile off. They're just chilling. Maybe they have sheep or whatever, and they have those pigs. And the demons are like, at least put us into the pigs. And Jesus is like, all right, go in the pigs. And then the farmers are just there like, what the heck? That's my livelihood. And I gotta go climb down this cliff. And
Perfectly good pigs.
perfectly good pigs. What about me, Jesus? What about me? It's just so funny to think about those poor
Well,
pig owners.
I mean, that's part of the rise against Jesus was these people that went back to their city and were like, "Yo, guess what this guy
And
just
that's
did?"
just one. That's just one. Could you imagine if you just went town to town, just killing
Getting
everybody?
rid of all the pigs.
All the pigs. No more pigs in all of Israel.
No more bacon.
Oh my god, that's why the Jews can't have bacon. Jesus killed all the pigs.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, there you go. That's your episode.
There you go.
Oh man.
Oh man. Well, again, we're gonna have so many conversations and so many talks about so many of this good stuff. But
Yeah.
we just wanted to give you guys, the listeners, an opportunity to get to know us and know our stories and where we come from a little bit, so that as you hear us chat, you'll kind of understand the context of what we're saying.
Yeah, and we're doing. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, we're gonna do a YouTube channel too.
Ew.
So I'm just gonna post this on. We'll just make a YouTube channel.
Cool. Hey.
Because we just recorded this on my phone for the first time. Last time we didn't have any video, so now we have some video.
There you go.
Because I am of the, I prefer to watch people.
Yeah.
When I listen to, so that way you have options.
There you go. It's awesome.
Cool beans.
Thanks for listening. We appreciate it.
Hey.
We'll see you next time.
Do 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 do.
Ta-da. Bye.